Do your consumer marketing efforts feel complicated? Experian Automotive delivers data-driven marketing solutions to find new customers and keep loyal ones. Drive measurable results with trusted data and expert support. Learn more at Experian.com/automotive.
Welcome to Daily Drive for Thursday, May 29th, 2025. I'm Mike Martinez in Detroit, in for Jamie Butters.
And I'm Jake Neer in Detroit, in for Kellen Walker. Today on the show, Elon Musk is leaving the Trump administration. Trade courts block President Trump's reciprocal tariffs, but auto levies are still in place. And Stellantis dealers embrace Antonio Filosa as the automaker's new CEO. Plus, the move toward more driverless technology is going to require a lot of work from suppliers. Magna's Stephen Jenkins talks about his company's efforts to innovate in that space.
You need to be the best in the world, and you can't have 10 people being best in the world.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry.
After leading a tumultuous and controversial effort to cut government spending, Tesla CEO Elon Musk is leaving the Trump administration. Musk and his Doge team upended several federal agencies, but failed to deliver the generational savings he had sought. Musk took to his social media platform X to thank President Donald Trump as his time as a special government employee draws to an end. Musk's 130-day mandate as a special government employee in the Trump administration was set to expire this week. The White House has said Doge's efforts to restructure and shrink the federal government will continue.
A U.S. trade court has deemed President Trump's global tariffs illegal. The ruling deals a major blow to a pillar of the White House's economic agenda. The Trump administration can appeal the decision and is likely to do just that. A panel of 3 judges at the U.S. Court of International Trade in Manhattan issued a ruling on Wednesday. It sided with Democratic-led states and a group of small businesses that argued Trump had wrongfully invoked an emergency law to justify the levies. The case relates to the so-called reciprocal tariffs rather than industry-specific taxes, such as those on auto imports. Existing 25% tariffs directly targeting vehicles and parts imports are not affected. However, Butzel attorney Mitchell Zajac says there are many parts that are affected by the ruling.
I would say the vast majority of parts are actually not on the automotive parts list, and so reprieve from those other tariffs is really what we see here.
We're following the story closely on autonews.com, where you can find the latest about what the decision means for the auto industry.
Meanwhile, Hyundai Motor Group is moving swiftly to add production of its gasoline, hybrid, and electric vehicles to the U.S. to offset tariff costs. The Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis parent says its total investment in domestic assembly currently sits at more than $40 billion. Hyundai Motor CEO Jose Munoz tells Automotive News that when the automaker is at full capacity, some 70% of the vehicles it sells in the U.S. will be made in the U.S.
The solution to tariffs is faster localization, higher flexibility, faster efforts to get the supply optimized. So we're going to go step by step as fast as we can without compromising safety and quality.
Munoz says the automaker has no specific plans to raise prices after June 2nd because of tariffs. He says that will depend on the model and what competitors decide to do in the market. You can read Munoz's full interview with our own Carly Schaffner at autonews.com.
And Stellantis' pick of Antonio Filosa to take over as CEO seems to be playing well with retailers. Filosa met with the automaker's dealer council on Wednesday, just hours after Stellantis announced the decision. Pennsylvania dealer David Kelleher says Filosa's communication with retailers immediately after the announcement sent a clear message about how he views their role in the business.
I mean, can you imagine the wheels that are turning for this guy right now at this moment and the job that he's about to undertake? And he set aside time to meet with his North American dealers.
One of Filosa's main missions in the nearly 6 months since CEO Carlos Tavares resigned has been to mend the company's relationship with its dealers. Filosa took on the role of North America COO in October and assumed those duties for South America as well after Tavares resigned in December. And those are today's headlines. So, Mike, we just heard from Jose Munoz about how Hyundai Group is sort of viewing tariffs and their moves after this kind of big date coming up in early June, sort of a standoff here. That's kind of the idea I get here, that automakers are kind of waiting for other competitors to move here. How does that effectively play out when this June deadline sort of rolls around?
Yeah, it's still really a wait and see mode. There's a lot of unanswered questions right now. You look at even automakers with high percentage of U.S. parts and vehicles in the U.S., like General Motors or Ford, even they're talking about trying to onshore some parts, some vehicles where they can, but it's all contingent on these rules being in place in effect for the foreseeable future, because nobody's going to make a move if the rules are going to change 6 months from now. So it's making things very hard. You know, longtime listeners and readers of automotive news know we typically do our future product pipeline series in the summer. This may be one of the hardest we have to report, because we're already getting rumblings from sources that these companies really don't know what to do about product announcements right now. They want to announce things and get on the White House's good side, but they don't quite know what to do with everything up in the air.
Could be a one-word story, just shrug, right?
Exactly.
I know we'll go in more depth than that, but that's sort of where we're at right now. Thanks, Mike. Coming up, Magna International's Stephen Jenkins talks about how North America's largest supplier is investing in driver assist and autonomous technology. That's next on Daily Drive.
Are you an automotive marketer navigating today's rapidly evolving landscape? Finding new customers and nurturing existing relationships can feel like a complex journey. But what if you had a powerful engine fueled by trusted data to guide your way? That's where Experian Automotive comes in. We understand the challenges you face. Today's personalized consumer journeys demand intelligent planning and precise execution. That's why we offer the Experian Marketing Engine, a coordinated suite of data-driven solutions designed to help you develop, execute, and most importantly, measure effective marketing campaigns. At the heart of our solutions is Experian's trusted data and a dedicated automotive team committed to your success. We empower you to drive measurable results with unique data insights, including identity solutions to help you better connect with your ideal customers with greater accuracy by cleaning and enriching your first-party data. Consumer and market insights helps you gain a deeper understanding of market trends and consumer behavior, enabling you to better target consumers. Targeted audiences to help you pinpoint and target the right prospects at the right time with the right message. Better data truly connects you to better results. Stop guessing and start driving measurable impact with Experian Automotive. Ready to transform your automotive marketing? Visit Experian.com/automotive to learn how our data-driven solutions can help you find new customers, keep loyal ones, and navigate the road ahead with confidence. That's Experian.com/automotive. Take control of your marketing journey today.
The 2025 Automotive Golf Classic is coming up soon, raising funds for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Southeastern Michigan. Players will tee off Monday, June 16th at St. John's Resort in Plymouth, Michigan.
Attendees will get exclusive access to the 3rd annual Automotive News Supplier Panel discussion just prior to tee time at 9 a.m. This year's remarks will feature Paul Thomas, President of Bosch North America, along with Colin Shaw, President of MEMA Original Equipment Suppliers. The executive guests will discuss challenges for suppliers stemming from the current trade landscape, new U.S. tariffs, and other critical issues facing the supply chain.
For more information about this event, reach out to Tiffany Sula at the Boys and Girls Clubs at tsula@bgcsm.org or to Philip Nussel, AGC Executive Chairman at pnussel@crane.com.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Mike Martinez with Jake Neer. Auto suppliers are in a race to keep up with tech trends that will define cars and trucks in the coming years. Stephen Jenkins is Vice President of Technology Strategy at Magna Electronics, which recently announced a partnership with Nvidia to work on driver assist systems. He spoke with our own Pete Bigelow about that and more. Here's a piece of their conversation.
One of the things that I think, if I'm going to name a Chinese automaker in particular, obviously BYD rolled out its plans for making its God's Eye driver assist system standard throughout its lineup. And it's not just one system, but it's 3 different ones. So they can put it on a premium vehicle all the way down to their mass market cars, which I think is really interesting from a, theoretically offering this to consumers overall, perhaps enhancing safety. What is it that they're doing kind of in the technical guts of the car that allow them to go from the mass market vehicles to the high end? Is there something from a chipmaker perspective or architecture perspective that allows that to scale and flex like that?
So I think one of the solutions, and I think this is general, not specific to that customer, is that they've started to find ways to be able to port the software between platforms more easily, right? Which is what you kind of do in other consumer electronics as well. It's possible to deploy your applications or your products across multiple hardwares, and that's one thing that kind of helps to solve this problem in the first place. And then you make more standardization around the sensors, which makes it also easier to port it across. But then the second or the third, depending on which one you count now, thing that I think is important here is they realize that instead of having 100 different solutions, you actually, by focusing on 3 levels, get a better performance on each level, and you also get a better savings on each level because you can reuse more between as well. So scalability of the architecture is one thing, and portability across the ECUs is a second thing, and more standardization of sensor sets allows this to really happen. And you can only really do that if you think about it up front. So if you do this after the fact, it's more difficult.
Does that mean a more centralized computing architecture, which a lot of startups that's what's enabling some of the speed that they can move and some of the scale that they can achieve with this?
Well, I mean, yes and no. I would say definitely, because you can, by starting at it's quite counterintuitive. By starting at a higher level of central compute, the actual compute is more expensive, but the system as a whole can be cheaper because you take away some of the disadvantages of doing it decentralized. By having buffers in each place or having to add additional costs in each place and having other things that do that as well. I would say the second thing is just thinking about an architecture as a vehicle architecture rather than trying to break it down into too many domains helps you a lot as well. It really does support this kind of scalability. And at the same time, we've seen that processing power is increasing and prices of the processing is going down. So it's multiple things moving at the same time.
Maybe this is a good segue into what Magna is doing with Nvidia, or maybe it's not. But generally speaking, on the technology front, Magna has a new deal maybe a month or two ago. I guess it's closer to 2 months. You rolled that at GTC. Tell us what you're doing with Nvidia, and does that help Western OEMs try and kind of compete with everything that we just kind of talked about going on in China?
Yeah, definitely. So we are working with them on the next generation platforms, and one of the very interesting things with this ecosystem is that there's a lot of things that are developed for it that maybe didn't originally be intended for automotive, but became intended for automotive. There's a lot of tools, a lot of tool chains, a lot of development, a lot of partnerships, a lot of everything around it, which helps it as well. So we believe that this is a very good way to get into the mid to high end systems where you really want to have this performance level. But you, of course, as I said, we're conscious outside of China, we're very conscious to the potential risks with accidents and other things as well. So we want extra compute power to be able to do additional functionality to resolve that. And then, of course, it's really in the right place at the right time when you start to see these really high-performing systems. We know we can do it in the Western world as well, and every OEM could do it if they wanted to. So,
I'm curious about the extra computing power. For a while, did you see automakers making decisions that were, maybe the polite way to put this is pennywise and pound foolish, where they didn't want to pay for any more than they absolutely needed at that particular time, but the cost of that was not being able to look 5 years down the road and wanting to do software updates or enhancements and over-the-air updates?
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think it was bad intention in some respects, because we're really only just now in the place where we could do continual updates and we could do a lot of updates over time and so on. And there's also that obsolescence thing as well. So I mean, even people that bought cars with future-proofed technology found out at some point that the choices were wrong anyway, and so I think we're in a different place now than we were some time ago. But definitely, there's an inherent need to try to keep the costs down. And originally, I would say the value of an ADAS system was not really understood by the customer, so no one was really prepared to pay for it. So you get a kind of catch-22. But now with the speeds of being able to do development and the reusability between the platforms, both from data rise, if I give you an example, we used to do a lot of rules-based systems, and so they were very specific to the hardware. We now do a lot more of a mixed mode where we use large amounts of data to train the system, and that's often reusable across other systems. So the portability, as I said, the reusability, the actual real concept of being able to do over-the-air updates and get value from it has started to really infiltrate the market.
When it comes to working with NVIDIA, I'm curious about, and I think you hit on this, I just want to put a bit of a finer point on it. Beyond the compute itself, like it's the entire ecosystem, is that that's really appealing to you and your customers and in terms of working with NVIDIA? Absolutely.
So this is a very good approach, and they're not the only ones doing it. Just to be clear, I don't want to point out that no one else is doing it. They're not the only ones doing it, but it's a really interesting approach because there's just such a large amount of support for that system, that kind of platform, from the training side to the validation side, all of the synthetic data. There's a lot of companies that have been working more towards these things that are using now these high performance computes, and that's very attractive because you can start to prioritize what you are good at instead of having to do everything just to do what you're good at, right? So, I mean, as an example, as a writer, you don't want to have to cut down a tree and make a pencil before you can, and paper before you start writing something. You want to just get the pencil and paper and start writing, or pen, or whatever you were using in a computer or whatever. It's kind of a similar thing. We don't want to necessarily do everything that is not in our IP chain for ourselves. We want to be able to use that, and our customers feel the same. They have some things they are really intend to keep in-house because they think it's very important for them to keep it in-house, but there's a lot of things they don't need to keep in-house, and a lot of things that other people are better at. I'm not the best at some things and I'm better at other things, and you should be focusing on what you're good at. So that's, I think, a really good landscape in this ecosystem.
That is one of the things that your new partnership with NVIDIA kind of underscored to me, was that some automakers want a tier one kind of at the center of their relationship with a tech company like an NVIDIA or the other players. Was there a time that the automakers were trying to work more directly with tech companies, and what is the new role or the old role of a tier one kind of in the midst of this relationship?
I would say it's still being sorted out. So I wouldn't say it's actually resolved yet, but it's tending more towards the kind of more logical thing, which is a tier two or a tech supplier hasn't the best thing, that what they're good at is doing tech, right? And that's what they should focus on. And they realize that now. They realize that when they have to build offices all around the world, when they have to interact with customers all around the world, when they get distracted from their true calling, they realize that's not helping them achieve their goal, which is delivering tech to end customers, right? And when the OEMs are looking at it, they're also looking at the same thing. They're saying, well, we want someone who's done this 20 times before, not someone who's doing it for the first time, because you kind of forget the fact that you've done this so many times and you've seen the problems. You can actually just intuitively say, oh, okay, this is what's happening and whatever. And doing that, from scratch is really actually quite hard. So as this scales up and you start to see, okay, originally when we started working with some of these systems, we were a smart camera, even with just simple kind of lane keeping or A/B, was actually not very popular. Now it's the standard everywhere. And now this is becoming more standard. You start to get more need for this kind of competence, and tier ones are very, very good at understanding the vehicle architecture, understanding the customer's requirements, understanding the requirements for 15 to 20 years of hardware longevity, and so on and so forth. And that doesn't mean, and all the tier twos, all the upstart companies, they're not used to that. They don't know how to produce it in mass. They can produce 10 of them, and they maybe add 20, 30 minutes cycle time to each product in the factory, and they think that's okay, because when you make 50 of them or 1,000 of them, it's not a problem. But when you make millions of them, it becomes a problem. That's what we're good at, and we're good at making it work as a system. So this is where the OEMs are starting to realize, and also the tier twos, the suppliers, that there's a good place for this kind of work. So,
by the way, tier ones are pretty good at industrializing complex products.
Exactly. Yeah.
You had mentioned, Stephen, before that, there's some things that OEMs really like to keep in-house, some things that they're kind of content to outsource. When it comes to the broad software-defined vehicle, are you seeing any trends with automakers in terms of they want to do more in-house, they want to put more on companies like Magna or others? Where's the trend with that right now?
So it's trending towards a better balance between what you want to keep in-house and what you want to get help from companies like Magna to do. I think originally there was much more, I would say it's driven by fear of being irrelevant in the future, really, is to say, okay, I see this software-defined vehicle thing as being a huge, complex problem that if I don't have in-house, I won't be able to compete in the future. And then realizing that, well, actually the domain is so big that it's not even logical to keep it all in-house, right? So, and each OEM has their different take on this. Some of them are really good at some things. There are some OEMs that are very, very good at the drive policy or the infotainment piece and so on, and they want to keep that because it's a brand identity. You sit in that vehicle, you feel like it should behave in a certain way, and that's difficult to translate, right? And there's other OEMs that really don't care. They just want to fulfill requirements and have ticks in the box and get 5-star NCAP, and they don't really care where it comes from. And so we need to cater to all of those different levels. But I think realization is that to stay relevant in an area that's changing all the time is actually quite hard for anybody. And so an OEM, when they build up a team and they build a product, they have to make sure that they can keep that product relevant over 10 generations or 5 generations. And there's so much development in these other areas that it's very hard for them to keep up. You need to be the best in the world, and you can't have 10 people being best in the world.
Stephen Jenkins is Vice President of Technology Strategy at Magna Electronics. You can hear his full conversation with our own Pete Bigelow on Shift, a podcast about mobility. That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Mike Martinez, in for Jamie Butters.
And I'm Jake Neer, in for Kellen Walker. Thanks to automotive news journalists Hannah Lutz, Carly Schaffner, and Vince Bond Jr. for their reporting for today's podcast. You can get the latest news on tech and innovation, tariffs, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoyed the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.